Ever wonder why sometimes in tennis, the less you think about things, the better you play? It's simple, because during those moments, you're relying more on instinct rather than trying to process everything step by step. Our next coach from IMG Academy is Pat Doherty, and he's going to introduce you to conceptual teaching, which uses visual cues from natural motions off the court to help your game on the court.
Conceptual teaching to me is appealing to the visual learning side of a player. The mental blueprint, how do they see a particular action? And so a lot of times we'll incorporate things you might find around the tennis court, because many things in tennis are actually counterintuitive. What we're trying to do is get you to build around the function. The benefit, when you build around the end product, the end result, many times all the key points that we look for fundamentally along the way fall right into place because the function is there. Most players come into the game seeing the strokes as very linear. Why? Well, this little device is a great example of a linear path that a ball travels on. And so you end up seeing players just entering the game, their bodies don't pivot at all, and they're just kind of pushing back the ball on the same line it's coming in on. An interesting device to bring onto the tennis court that most people are really familiar with, but we're going to use it a little differently, is a hula hoop. What I like players to understand is that the stroke is very cylindrical. And when I put the hula hoop around them, I want them to understand their elbows, including the opposite arm, can track the path of this hula hoop from start. Starts in the front arm, stretches at the chest. Now the backside starts coming through. Bang, I make contact with the ball, and on the finish, both my elbows are still exactly on the path of that hula hoop. My head has stayed exactly centered in the middle of this hula hoop, and my posture perfect the whole way through. This represents a player's strengths. So I want players to think of this hula hoop as allowing the ball to come into the edge of where you're strong, your strengths are, not trying to reach and lose posture getting the ball off any sooner. The other thing about this is that the racket, the butt end's lined up almost exactly with the ball, and as I come across my chest following that hula hoop, bang, right at contact, now the racket face is smack center in the sweet spot. And almost every bit of power that I'm creating in this swing is being redirected onto the ball on the same path it came in on. I want her to receive the ball within this cylinder because it represents where her strengths are, where she can maintain posture. One of the key elements of the athletic foundation is maintaining very upright and strong back posture. And so when you're in the center of that hula hoop, it's almost like a ceiling fan. You don't want it wobbling, and you'd see Djokovic just pivoting around, staying right centered between his feet. Very helpful visual image for you to retain in your mind as you go out and start to develop your forehand into a big weapon. Very good. Very nice. One of my favorite training partners is the back fence. You'll find it on any tennis court you play on. Let's start with this tool, the hammer. The racket is also a tool. You may never have thought of it as one, but they function very similarly in how they create their power. If you watch the hammer action, the butt end drives first and the head follows, so that the head of the hammer is traveling considerably longer distance than the handle. If we were to turn that sideways, it would look like this. And this is what we're going to do in the process with Luciana's two-handed backhand. The problem we had is that her hands weren't driving the butt end. So it was like a very inefficient hammer action like this, right? So we adjusted the grips a bit, and we want to loosen the hands up. So many players have their hands battling for control, and they just tighten down and get no action out of the head. It looks like this more. So this action is going to really emulate how the pros hit the two-handed backhand. It starts with a turn and pull, and as it gets close to contact, all the action goes to the head. Very little in the handle at this point. At impact, it all starts traveling again. Watch Luciana. We're going to start, and I'm going to help her get the feeling of the upright version of this action. Let me create the action. You relax your hands. We want the hands to start feeling like they're working in a cooperative effort to create head speed. And you can hear that action. Now when we turn that sideways, she wants to create the same thing. Believe me, that would be hitting a backhand quite hard. So now you have some interesting things to go out and try on the tennis court, using things you can find almost anywhere at any tennis facility. If you incorporate these into your training, you might discover some things that you never knew you could do with a tennis racket. It's a very effective way to train, and it's a fun way to teach kids how to play.